I'm really excited to bring Jen Malzer to you all and online. Like I said, some of the coolest spaces you see in Calgary, Jen's probably had a hand in them. So Jen, I'll let you introduce yourself a bit, but we're looking forward to seeing what today's all about.
Awesome, thanks. Thanks everybody. It's great to be here. I'm one of two presenters that you should have today. My colleague Kam had a family emergency today, so you'll get just half of us, but a big shout out to her for thanking me. Get ready for today. Today we're going to talk about transportation, and we're going to talk about disruption, innovation ideas, and how we go about it when we do have ideas that are maybe a little out there or just not the regular practice. And so how can you just generally be more effective when you do have ideas? And we're going to sort of flip back and forth between transportation and ideas innovation, and the ideas that we knew we were first up after lunch, which is definitely the worst time slot. So please do participate, just at least to make me feel better that you're at least awake. So say you want a revolution. So we also wanted to start, this is a new space to us, new space to the team. We wanted to know who was in the room. So if we could just do a quick hands up survey with, please, where does everyone in the room come from? So do you come from tech? At least half, more than half, 3/4. Okay, tech, that makes sense. Planning. Not so much engineering, a little bit of planning, more engineering, and any students? No students, maybe online. Storytellers, yes. Hopefully we're all storytellers, but a couple of us self-identifying. Okay, and then we wanted to just have a little bit of fun because, again, it's after lunch. Star Trek, Star Wars versus Harry Potter. Where do we stand on this very critical topic? I'll give you a moment to reflect. Star Wars, yes? Or Star Trek. Star Trek. I will go Star Trek. You can be in multiple camps, too. I don't know that it has to be mutually exclusive. Star Wars. Okay, as expected. That's a crowd pleaser. And Harry Potter. I'll put my hand up for this one, too. Yeah, very good. Okay, so we also then wanted to start us out with what ideas are in the room. Does anybody have anything a little bit out there that you may be a little nervous to say out loud, but you're going to anyway, that we can sort of consider to kick off this 1 p.m. conversation? So what ideas are you sitting on? Are you actively trying to advance that could be fun? Surf wave, yes. Who doesn't love a good surf wave? Anybody else? Yeah.
So there's a smart cities NEOM out of the United Arab Emirates.
What is that? Tell me what it is.
Within the desert, they're building a smart city, and it's completely connected and very tactile. I don't know all the details, but I'm intrigued, and I'm wondering, what does it take to bring it here?
Billions of dollars, but no. Okay, and so you'd love to bring that here as a new city or to incorporate into? Incorporate, love it, yes. Okay, so learning. Any other cool ideas that, you know, by the end of my career, I'm going to accomplish with a team? Anybody? Okay, Christopher.
A fully comprehensive digital twin of the city.
Mm-hmm. A digital twin of the city. Cool, what's that?
Where every element within a city is captured virtually as well, where it's like every road, pipe, street light, even everything else, so you could explore the city virtually, so that way you don't have to explore it as in having to do field inspections, and if you have something new coming in, you'd be able to easily identify if there's any conflicts or how it looked like in the space.
Okay, amazing. I feel like we have such good tech that we do already have this, but maybe not. Maybe that's way more than LiDAR, it sounds like. Okay, amazing, I love it. Any last ones? Yeah, in a second.
I have a digital map of downtown with everything already on it and a layout of the whole city. And it takes 22 megs, so you can carry it with you and look like you are very knowledgeable.
Quick reference guide. Awesome. I love it. Okay. Which one did we run a run with, or do we keep them all? So let's start with. Okay. Oh, thanks. Let's go with. What do we think? Digital twin for Calgary? What are we going to call the digital twin? Edmonton. Okay. All right. Let's keep that in mind. So we want to get this digital twin called Edmonton. And that's actually the perfect name because along your journey to build this digital twin, it may not be totally seamless and smooth. We may have setbacks. People may not agree. Yes?
Calgary Prime.
Okay.
No, I'm going to say no because not every idea has every supporter. And so I actually love that name comes with baggage. Is that okay? Or maybe we're still in the naming phase and we have many on the table, but we have to land a name. Okay, so let's talk about, we have ideas. We all have ideas. Even if we didn't admit to them today in this room, knowing that this was going to be recorded and we're too embarrassed, every one of us has ideas, or we live with people with ideas. And it could be just, I'm going to make something a little bit weird for Saturday night, but you're going to invite people. And those people may have different appreciation of your menu or your crazy idea. So who are the people in a room and how might they react? And what does that matter? And so when we think about ideas and people coming to experience your idea, you say it out loud to a room of people, you're going to have a range of reactions. You're going to have, this is a model from, like, it's a normal distribution model, so many in the room will already know the curve itself. But it's also a great way to lay out how people approach ideas. And so the people on the left of this rendition of a normal distribution really, really love your idea. They love it right away. And sort of in the middle, they may or may not, they have some enthusiasm and a little bit of reticence, but you might be able to get them along. And then you got some folks at the end, and we don't like to use the word laggards anymore, but they have some concerns. So, and this, if you get a big enough population, you're gonna get people with all of these perspectives reacting to your idea. So let's just apply it and try to internalize what it means. Because if you want to get a surf wave, or you want to bring a city from the United Arab Emirates to Calgary, you're gonna need to convince some folks. So let's talk about this from the sense of e-scooters. Now, think back to, I think it was 2019, Calgary was finally getting e-mobility devices. We were getting e-bikes and e-scooters. Where do you think you landed on this spectrum in terms of innovator, early adopter, late to the game? Yeah. Not in the game. You were not going to try an e-scooter. Why is that? Yeah, they're dangerous. Why would you try something that's dangerous? That makes zero sense.
And a lot of people, I used to work in clinical neurosciences and also in the brain injured unit. And a lot of people, they avoid wearing helmets.
Mm-hmm. And people don't take the proper precautions and it's dangerous, and you know firsthand what the dangers can mean. So you're not getting on board. How about somebody who did get on board? Yes?
I think I'm an early adopter.
An early adopter. How do you know?
I didn't help put in the scooters.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't work out the kinks.
Mm-hmm.
I just hopped on and
Yeah,
went and
you were
scared a whole bunch of
super
people.
keen as soon as the system was in place.
That's right.
Love it. Anybody who felt they were an innovator? We'll see it in the next one, maybe. Okay. Anybody who was a little bit reticent but now has fallen in love? Yeah, Jason. You've fallen in love
Yep.
with the e-scooter?
Yes. You don't see anybody on them that doesn't have a smile, and I wanted to smile too.
That's right. Yeah, so you waited for the data. Cool. All right, one more example, if I could get this to move this way. Come on. Okay, what about virtual working? So working from home. We all sort of had to do this. Anybody who was an innovator?
I've worked from home for 25 years.
For 25 years, before this was even known,
Yeah.
you knew how to do it. How did you get there?
I never worked for companies that were here in Calgary, so I created my own office.
Yeah, it was a necessity. It was a priority. You really liked the work, so you made it work.
And I would really have a hard time moving back into an office.
Yes, and you're never going back.
Never going back.
Anybody on the other end of the spectrum from not an innovator, but really holding back? I am. I like to see people in person in 3D. Did anybody switch from the last topic to this topic? Like move from one end of the spectrum to another? You did? Did that surprise you?
Yeah, because I'm like the other lady, I'm not getting on an e-scooter.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we often think that depending where we may be, if I'm an innovator or Jason or Keith is an innovator on one topic, that they're always an innovator. And it's not necessarily related to that, right? It's really intrinsic to something that makes sense to you, or it's an idea that has data to back it up, that it really works, that kind of thing. Let's explore one more quickly. Food delivery. Who's on board with food delivery and who's not? Sure.
Oh, I just think it's very convenient to have food delivery. Smiles and
Yeah.
expensive. Why not?
Yeah, why not? All the benefits.
Yeah, like it. Yes.
Cool.
Probably more efficient to do delivery than all those cars on the road.
Nice. Yeah, thanks. Again, anybody switch on this category compared to another one? Yes.
I found I've been really resisting delivery for the environmental cost and what am I going to do with all these bloody containers, really?
Okay.
Yeah. So there's some tangible downsides. So say you're a food delivery company and you wanted to pitch that this is a really good approach. It's efficient. Why not? People like it. If you want to attract customers or folks to onboard your idea, to make it legal, to make it, to attract drivers, you have to maybe work through different kinds of key messages to land your idea with different groups. And I think that's where innovation can come in and help. We're going to pause on this part for a second, unless anybody has any other comments that they want to bring up. Yes, please.
With e-scooters, I realize I'm a lagger because I've never tried it and I don't want to try it. I'm in the same category. But I was also an innovator because I was aware of the technology. I was talking to companies that were starting it. And so it was this halfway, like, I'm a laggard, but also I guess I was an innovator.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you may think an idea is great and good for a population or certain demographics, but it's not for you. We don't always do things for ourselves. Yeah, thank you. That's a great insight. Any other last insights? Okay.
When you
Yeah.
mentioned working from home versus in the office, I do miss taking my bike and riding down to the office.
So that's another point of, say, this particular idea takes away some other benefits. And that's often when we think about the late adopters, is there's something that they're giving up. And so is there another way that you can work from home, but you know what, we're going to make it easier for you to pick up your kids by bike or take bike trips in another way so that you're still getting the benefits you have today. And that's really important with landing ideas. Okay, so now we have a quick video about change in transportation. Okay. That's a great video. Shows a lot of changes in a pretty tough place with a lot of folks. Any thoughts on how easy or hard those changes were to make? Christopher.
It's easier for the plazas because you have so many people there already. It's easier to fill up that space compared to somewhere where we have to implement that in like a low-density suburb. It would be tougher to kind of activate that space as much just because you don't have the people to support it.
Right. Okay. So, whereas the people might make it harder because they might be afraid, at least they're there to enjoy it and see the results right away. Yeah. Great point. So Kam and I showed that video because those are the kinds of changes that she and I at least hope to be involved with. I don't know, or maybe not at the New York scale, but the Calgary scale. And yeah, it really does take working with a lot of different perspectives, different people. And you can imagine that we would have different messages and what else might we be doing to make these kinds of changes?
Considering that, like, all those shots were of New York in the summertime, and how do we do that same kind of activation in the winter and become more like Montreal and that winter city that they've become?
Yes, yeah, or Winnipeg. I have to shout out to my birth home. They do great winter activation, but that's a good point. I mean, we have our construction season, and people do want to sit outside and really relax in the summer. But often we don't finish our projects till the end of September. So how do you make people keep the faith that by the next summer it's going to be a grand place? And so I think some of the materials they used were really quick, so you could get that change more immediately. Yes?
And I mentioned this in the prior presentation. The one thing that I noticed that the City of Calgary does in order to make the bike lanes much more accessible and be utilized even in the winter time, regardless of when it snows, the amount of snow. The city crews are out there clearing those bike lanes, and they're the first ones to be cleared before city sidewalks and the roadways.
Yeah, thanks for that. We have amazing crews, and they work in a really coordinated way so that they actually clear the sidewalks and the bike lanes at the same time, so all the snow gets picked up at the same time, because we actually clear the snow, remove it from the downtown. So yeah, thanks for that shout out, because they are awesome. Any other thoughts? Yeah, please.
I think people during the construction period of time, or as they're leading up to it, that's where the most kind of adversarial kind of feelings are. But once it's done, then people are like, oh, look at this, it's lovely. It's like the construction period never happened. They just have to get through it.
Yes, sometimes. Sometimes we still get calls from, I mean, not everybody is going to have the same opinion, but hopefully if we design and build and operate properly, then we'll have a lot more happy customers. Okay, so we're going to go back from sort of transport, as I promised, Kam and I were going to flip back and forth a bit between transportation, the world we live, and then just in general, like, how do you land ideas? So we're going to do something, again, interactive. We have a few Jeopardy questions, and I'm sure everybody knows the game of Jeopardy. I'm going to give you the answer, and then you hopefully can guess what the question is, and then talk through a different sort of innovation topic. So this first answer is a common change management curve, and hint, hint, you may have already seen it, that describes many patterns, including how ideas typically land in regular populations. Yes.
Standard deviation.
Yes. Yeah. Normal distribution. So normal distribution or diffusion of innovation. So I know we've already talked about this, but it's a model that has been around, I think, since the late '60s. I want to say '68, and is just really a great one to make sure that you're talking with different folks from across the spectrum. There's a lot of different biases in innovation work, and some kind of forms of bias are around just working with people who think the same as you. So I think it's really important to step back and say, Am I talking with folks who are on board and definitely not on board, who are or those in the middle who maybe don't know about, to tease out what are some of the questions you might need to answer and data you might need to collect. And also just to get a sense of how ready is your organization. A good line that I heard at a conference was, every public sector employee needs to have that top drawer of ideas where you have these ideas, but the timing is not now. You don't have the right partner. The city or council it's just not the right time for that idea. So you put it in the drawer, and then you get sort of a shape or a timing or a set of circumstances, a funding source that is right, and then it's time to open the drawer and move that idea. So you have to know where people stand and are the conditions right. Okay, so this one is really near and dear to my heart. So if you want to change or do something different, you may need to evaluate it. You may need to show and measure that something is in fact a good idea before you do it, and then especially after you've done it. So close to this is analytical philosophy, that you achieve only what you need. Hopefully, but that's not the answer or the question.
Pilot?
Not pilot. Measure, yes.
Oh.
Yes. So if you're measuring the wrong things that may not be connected to your goals, your aspirations, the things that you measure are the things that you keep top of mind, are the things you report back to at council. Those are the pieces that are pulling your efforts. So if you are measuring what really, really matters, that is a great way to pull you towards making the difference you want. So I work with folks around safety, and so we really want to be measuring things like, are we lowering the speed limits? Are we creating conditions that are safe? And just to dig into that one a little bit more, if we do a project, we relatively at a particular intersection, probably there's not, without sounding insensitive, that many intersections at that intersection, or it may take a time to reveal a new pattern. But we may have some leading indicators, like our cars going fast or our cars going slow, that will tell us over time that there's going to be more or less accidents. And sorry, I shouldn't say accidents, because they're not. Crashes or collisions. And so it's really being thoughtful about what is it the things that you're talking about and what are the things that you're measuring to make sure you're moving towards where you really truly want to be. And so we did a project with the University of Calgary we did this sort of 8,000 paper scan of the different metrics that are out there when it comes to transportation in communities, and really trying to find those leading indicators that tell us whether we will or are doing a good job when it comes to street design. And so for us, if the street is narrow, cars are going to slow down, there's going to be fewer accidents. I said it again, it's terrible. Another indicator, if there are bike lanes or wheeling lanes, we know when we build bike lanes, it's safer, the street becomes safer for everybody. Pedestrians, people driving. Another one is around green streets, lots and lots of benefits when we can make more space for trees and other things that grow. Okay, so I think this may be the last one. So when you're landing a new idea, disruptive solution, facts don't change this important human ingredient.
What are opinions?
Opinions, super close, yeah. Yeah.
Feelings?
I could take opinions, yeah. Somebody say feelings?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I still don't. Was it you that said it? Oh, thank you. Okay, yes, feelings. Facts don't change feelings. Opinions is just a different expression of feelings, so we can go with that. And so storytelling, I know that's come up today, is really important. Often when we go into communities, say, hey, we're here, the City of Calgary is here, we have the opportunity to invest in your neighborhood. You may not be familiar with the problems of your neighborhood. They may not be problems to you. But when we can express there's a safety concern, and by the way, your neighbors let us know about it. By the way, your neighbors feel really strongly about it. That's a better way to have a conversation. So really trying to incorporate the feelings of those around us, making space for it, in addition to having the data to show that we really did achieve what we intended to. Okay, and then we'll just get a little nerdy around transportation and how we design for people walking and biking in Calgary. So when we talk about bike lanes across Canada, the expression a lot of cities are landing on is AAA or AAA infrastructure. But in Calgary, we have 2 extra A's, which is better. 5 is better than 3. Okay, so here's that was my setup. Now here's the actual answer. So while a AAA is a common term for user-centered bike design in Canada, this 5A is even more inclusive, expectant of inclement weather. So what are the extra 2 A's? Close, yeah. So yeah, basically it's always available. Always available for all ages and abilities is how we talk about designing for people walking and biking in Calgary. And so we have design principles that help us get to that point. But this was a real turning point in how we design for people walking and biking in Calgary and Canada. So my favorite example, so transportation engineers around the 60s, 70s made some assumptions that nobody wanted to walk, or especially to industrial areas, or bike to here or there. And so we started omitting certain elements. And then as we ran out of practice designing for people walking and biking, we made our best guess. And some of our best guesses were quite terrible. So 16th Avenue North, in the very, very early 2000s, we designed, if everyone's familiar with that, with TransCanada through sort of the inner city segment, that street is actually designed for people biking because the curb lanes are a very comfortable 4.3 meter lanes, 4.3 meters. And so as we sort of guessed with some of these new designs and found that, oh wait, there's 0 uptake, because in fact, that's not what's comfortable to human beings, we started designing and consulting around, well, what are the conditions that actually are comfortable for you to walk and bike? And now we have council-approved design principles that help us down that path. So we know that communities and parks have different contexts, and so designs are going to vary by context, by the number of people there. But generally, people want to be separated from cars. Generally, people want to be able to have signposts so they know where they're going. So we have these network principles, and that was a really important moment, I think, in Canada and other places, to really put the user first. And that's really important to me. And I think in any design that we do, not just in transportation, is actually thinking about what is it that the customer wants. And it seems so simple, and yet it doesn't always happen. So when it comes to any disruption, that's probably the most important thing. Okay, I lied. We have one more. This is my second and favorite. It's very simple, change model. So the name of a common change model, also known as a piece of freshwater ice, more than 15 meters long, broken off a glacier, or an ice shelf floating freely in open water. Yeah, okay, I'm hearing a whisper. The answer is iceberg. So the iceberg model, it's a good representation, or I use it as kind of a checklist to say, okay, are we actually doing this idea that maybe council told us to? Where are we as a group or an organization when it comes to adopting this thing? How am I for time? I'm just, good. Okay, I do want to respect my, okay. And so I started working in an area called tactical urbanism, and so that's where you do little pilots to test things out. And so you may think, okay, we did one and it turned out well, therefore we're doing it in Calgary. Well, that is not true. We may have some singular events that can maybe change people's perceptions and maybe open the door a little bit, but that's all it is. Until you can go down this full iceberg, you haven't adopted this new thing. And so where you may have an isolated event that Jen did something, well, that's not necessarily that important to that many people. But then you get other people doing it, and it becomes a pattern, it becomes a trend. You're getting on the way, but your corporation probably isn't there yet. It's really what's below the water that really matters when it comes to embracing a new idea. So are your systems, structures, and then your culture ready for that idea? Have you adapted your permission space? Have you adapted your local laws? What are the legal frameworks? And that could be policy or even having the right team in place to really onboard a new idea and way of doing things. Okay, so I am near the end, so hopefully that's good. Okay, so we wanted to, we knew everyone in the room, even if we didn't get to it, has ideas. We wanted to share a few things that we think are worth fighting for. So things we're interested in, Cam, what is the future? How do we design for more e-bikes? When we started out on those network principles, around designing for people walking and biking, we were really focused on separating people biking from cars. But now with more and more things, weird scooters and single-wheeled thingy-bobs going fast, we're talking more and more, how do we separate people biking from people walking? And then e-vehicles are coming, I think. A friend was just taking a driverless vehicle in San Francisco and survived. So who knows? Downtown revitalization is really complex stuff and fun. So Cam's really leaning into that. Curbside, so that's sort of the edge of the sidewalk or street. There's a lot of competition for that space. How do we really thoughtfully decide how to use it? And then having more of a seasonal paint the pavement program. So that's, when we talk about structures and to support ideas, do we have a good application process when residents want to paint their street, that it's simple to understand and it's simple for us to process? So I know paint the pavement has been really popular and we have some good experience, but how do we make those structures easier? So for me, just trying to get to know users better. We're doing a lot more equity in our infrastructure planning, and we're working a lot more east of Deerfoot, which is exciting. And there's different family structures that are more common, more multifamilies and dwelling units, different school drop-off patterns with more grandparents involved. How do we get to know who we're serving better through conversation and just practice? One of the crazy ideas that I'm excited about is urban gondolas. And I worked on a project just before I had my son, actually. I was trying to improve transit service around the university. And the road network is really complicated around there, and we have the river crossing, and a lot of cities are saying, hey, finally, there's like a mass transit system that's affordable. And so we started looking into it. And I think there's some places in Calgary where it could be a good application. I think piloting more street changes is a good way to approach. It doesn't work on all streets. It just, if we have curbs in the wrong place, it can be too limiting, but can we do some more GIS work? Can we have more of a digital city so we can tease out those streets where we can make those pilots really quickly and make change faster? My line of work can take a really long time to realize projects, so the more we can find those locations that could be good pilots, that's the more streets we can make safer and more inclusive faster. I love big data. I love hackathons. I love bringing more diverse people to the table, because good ideas are everywhere, and it's just about finding time and ways to get the partners that we need to work together. And then just remembering good ideas. That drawer, keep filling it up with ideas that you see from elsewhere, and think about how something you saw on holiday might be adapted, maybe not in its existing form, but how do we bring more of that Montreal and Winnipeg winter city stuff here, and who do we need to make that really successful? And it's probably a lot of people to make it successful, just like this space, right, Jason? Lots of different folks to make it cool. And I think that's it. So if anybody has any questions or ideas or anything they want to chat about, or Jason, if I'm done, I'm done.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go run around with the mic so people at home can hear. What is the urban gondola?
So when we go skiing on the weekend, we get on a gondola to go up the hill. Well, lots and lots of cities around the world, but not in North America, although Simon Fraser soon is going to actually use gondolas as a form of public transit, because they're easy to build. They actually have huge capacity, and one of the complaints that people have with bus transit is often the frequency can be low depending where you are, but you can have very high frequent surface, and so it's just a gondola, but in a city.
What does Edmonton have to get you from the River Valley bottom to downtown?
It is a funicular.
Yeah, a funicular.
Yeah, but to me it's almost just an elevator, but I could be incorrect. So
what does our digital
I got to
twin
nerd
have?
out a little bit, but there's 4 kinds of sort of cable propelled transportation systems. And really you can have some, like a funicular, they have one in Old Montreal or Quebec City, and it's sort of 2 cars that do this. And so you have, so it's just 2 cars, so you don't have the same frequency. Similarly, in Portland, they have an aerial tram, and so that's also 2 cars between, I think, the bottom of the hill and a hospital at the top of the hill. And they just kind of go back and forth.
Okay. Other questions? All right, Luis.
Hi, Jen. Curious, I'm putting together 2 concepts of measure and feelings. Mm-hmm. Have you tried measuring feelings?
Measuring, yeah.
I love you this much.
Yeah, so I have 2 answers. I guess we are about to start. We generally do qualitative analysis, but we do want to develop something that will help gather some more of the stories and what is the meaning? Like, when we make these changes, what does it tangibly mean in your life? And so I live along one of the streets that we just improved for people biking, and maybe it's just the timeline on the community, and maybe it has nothing to do with the improvements, but lots more people biking, and it's lots and lots of like dads and little kids, or lots of different kinds of bikes. It's not just one type of person biking. And then we also made improvements to the park, and I love that people are using that space in different ways. So if we just tallied up how many people are in the park at different times, it is useful. But then if we can say, well, there were picnics and soccer, and like, what are the many ways we didn't even design for that people want to do. So we have a great innovation lab, and we were going to do an accelerator with them to come up with a bit more of a guide. But then back to, it's not quite feelings, but I do try to find measures that are compelling. So we don't always gather data around it. Like, what if we were to gather how many calories? Or just before the pandemic, we were working more with Alberta Health Services about, can we get more data around slips and falls? So we may not be saving city dollars all the time, but slips and falls is super, super expensive. And if we have better sidewalks with better ramps, then we can maybe save people those slips, and then, so that's not necessarily a feeling either, but something you care about.
But we have seen two other pieces too. Like you've seen where you've put biking infrastructure in and people can feel safer, then that's demonstrated by actually more women cycling. You see the greatest increase when you make a pathway safer. You see a greater increase in women feeling comfortable enough. They feel comfortable enough to ride.
Yes.
That one's a really good one. And I think we talk about giving people more choices, whether that's housing or transportation. I think when you make these kinds of investments, you're seeing like people with cargo bikes or people taking their kids to school. They feel more comfortable. They feel that they've got more choices. So that's one. The other one is that there's that data study with the U of C on wearables.
That's right, on the wearables.
Right? So their aim is to get 10,000 Calgarians submitting their smartwatch data to the university, and then PhD students and master students there are using that data to explore how it could be used for the city. So you could start to see where people's heart rate goes up at different intersections or at different places along the pathway. So you can start to see how the intersection makes people feel more stressed out, or even their cadence changes on a pathway. So your cadence changes, it could mean that that section is icy, or there's a root sticking out, or, right? And just all that kind of data, you're starting to get into people's feelings.
Yeah, thank you. I would have forgotten to mention that, so perfect.
Any other questions? All right, I'm coming.
I simply would like to return to their idea of city gondola, and I'm wondering, did you do the estimation of cost? Funicular with the gondola, because I believe gondola is more expensive during construction and also later. So why city gondola?
Yeah, great question. And
Thank you.
The answer is going to be it depends. I love all kinds of transit technologies, and you need the right technology in the right place. But where I think actually gondolas are cheaper is that because you have many, many cars with smaller groups of people, the weight is lower, so the support poles along the route they don't have to be as strong. But if you only have one place to one place, and it's not that long, I think it depends how many customers and so many factors. But generally, gondolas are pretty inexpensive. And that's why South America sort of started the trend, because they couldn't afford to build metro and train.
And the poorest people would live up higher on the mountains.
Yeah.
Where would you put one in Calgary?
Well, I think there's a few spots, but it would be interesting to look at connecting like the West LRT with the Northwest LRT, so the blue and the red lines, so like across the river, or just I think connecting the hospitals to the buses. But anyway, I don't work at Calgary Transit anymore, so.
Yeah, which gives you freedom to talk about
That's true.
it. Okay, I'd love to see one across the ditch, like going East Village, or not East, East Calgary, right? 17th Ave, downtown, something like that. All right, any other questions? Okay, so it is 2 o'clock. We are right on schedule. So we'll have a 15-minute break, and then we'll come back at 1 o'clock for, you're coming up, right? Awesome. Okay. Jen, thank you so much. We were just saying, there's some texting around our group. You need to come back every week and just have a chat with us here. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We'll chat soon.